This is a demo of Rebase, which is a client collaboration platform for real estate professionals. And it streamlines a deal from end to end using AI to automate a lot of the administrative tasks. So you can scale up your production and spend more time with your clients and less time on paperwork. So I'm going to run through what it's like to use the platform when you have agency established with your client, because there's a lot of third-party platforms that focus on the top of the funnel in terms of lead generation and conversion. So this is meant for when you have agency with your client. First thing, this is a project management style CRM where it's kind of like a Kanban board in that you move through the different stages of a transaction and it surfaces those clients that need a bit more attention. Maybe you're showing them properties or writing offers for them and you're in escrow. So there's a lot more communication that needs to be done at different stages. So I'm going to create a new contact. I'm going to import directly from KV Core and create a new contact. So just coming back here, when you are moving through the different stages of a transaction, of course you can drag and drop so that you know exactly what is next with that specific client, and it will have contextual information. So if you are in a conditional period, it will have a date that tells you when the subject removal is due so that you can stay on top of things and make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. So let's say we're working with a client, we're showing them properties. I'm going to put them in the showing column. This is really your dashboard for each person that you are working with. And if you click on the share button, it has a timeline of the entire transaction, the time that you're working together. So as you are checking items off the list, they will be completed here. And it's just an easy way to give an overview of all the effort and work that is going into that relationship. So I'm going to head over to the assistants and create a new thread. What these are assistants that are geared towards a specific stage in the transaction. So let's say you're putting together a contract and it's after hours, your managing brokers aren't available, and you want to ask some questions about, let's say, conditions in a contract. Let's say we use the real estate lawyer assistant and I want to get some standard conditions to put in the contract. So I'm going to ask it to give me some simple conditions. So the AI assistant accessed all of the clauses that are traditionally used in a contract. These are all drafted by lawyers, and each brokerage will have different ways of formatting their contracts, and it's always advised to have very specific dates. So instead of within one business day or within 24 hours, we put on or before a specific date. So your brokerage, your managing broker behind the scenes can modify the way that they would prefer to see these contracts formatted. So you don't have to do that additional cross-checking to see if you're putting it together correctly. The response we got were the 3 conditions we asked for: the new mortgage, property inspection, and the review of strata documents. And since this is a thread, we can continue this conversation. So if I want to change the date to, let's say, earlier on in May, it'll take the previous response and update the new response with that updated information. So there's one for title review. If you're not sure what the charges are on the title, you can upload the title and ask it to explain each charge to you so that you have a better understanding. And there's also a strata expert if you want to upload your strata documents. Often they're 200 to 300 pages long. So if you want to summarize it for a specific unit, you can do that easily with these assistants. So first we'll have a look at the documents section. Now this is integrated directly with DocuSign, so you don't have to store documents on your computer or other websites like Korea Web Forms. It can all be managed directly in this platform. And by centralizing documents, it's easier to keep track of all of that information and send it to other platforms like SkySlope, which we'll cover later in the demo. But let's say these mandatory disclosures and agreements need to get signed. Just click the button and it will send the document to your contact for signing. And I'll go ahead and fast forward this section so that we can see what happens after the document is signed. So when those documents are signed, you'll get notification and the signed documents will be sent directly back into the platform. So once we have the documents signed, let's say we're going to schedule a tour to show some properties. So I'll create a new tour. Let's say this is in Vancouver. And I'll add a listing that I want to show to my client. What this also does is when the user puts in their address, it calculates the total travel time to get to these different properties so that when tax time comes around, you have all your business expenses and mileage sorted out for you. And it's a really good way to create efficient property tours so that you can figure out the best route and then ultimately reach out to those agents to schedule the tours. So when you create a tour, all of the listings are added here, and buyers, they multi-home on a variety of websites. So maybe they're using MLS or Zillow and they send you MLS numbers, addresses. This is a way to track all of the listing history between you and your client so that if you want to recall what that one property is that you looked at, you can easily pull that up and all of the MLS fields are included here. This is compliant with RESO Web API standards, which is short for Real Estate Standards Organization. So these are all standard fields that you get from the MLS, and you can see all of the listing history here as well as the tax assessment. Now let's say you showed a property that your client is interested in. Next thing will be to create a CMA. So I'm going to create a new CMA with that listing, and I'll click Save and Continue. And then from here you can determine all the criteria that you want to find comparables with, and then it will pull all the sold comps which you can compare to see if it's in line with the property you're offering on. So I'm going to choose these three comps here and then go to the adjustments section. This is a side-by-side view of the subject and the comparables. It's more how an appraiser would put together a property valuation. It's a lot easier when it's side-by-side to do adjustments. So let's say here, this one has an additional parking spot. Maybe you want to do an adjustment of 40,000, and that will update the closed price so that it's more in line with the characteristics of the subject. Now, once you've done all of these comparisons and you want to do a valuation, it will calculate the average median price, price per square foot, so that you can strategize with your client on what you might want to offer on the property. Now, here in the bottom right, if you click on that icon, it pulls up the AI assistant. Now, this assistant is context aware. So as you're putting together a CMA, all of this information, the comparables, the valuation, the adjustments, is used to train your AI assistant, so you can ask it very context-specific questions. So I'm going to ask it what it thinks we should offer on this property. So we got a response from the AI model, which is currently GPT 4.1. Being that it sent the listing that your client is interested in and the comparables, it does an analysis on the different features and what a good offer strategy might be. So let's see what it says here. It says the listing agent notes a $50,000 commission bonus, which may indicate motivation to close quickly. So that gives some really good insight into seller motivation and a possible range that you can offer, and some additional tips on how you could possibly negotiate this. So this is a really great feature if you want to get some tips on how to manage that negotiation and offer. Let's say that we want to create a new offer on this property. So it's going to be a sale, and I'll just put in the MLS number here. So let's say you're offering 5.1 million. You can calculate the rescission price and the deposit amount, as well as the commission. So sell side will just zero that out. And I'll put in some example dates here. Now all of this information will be added to the contract, which you can then just send to your client for signing, and it will send it over to the listing agent for them to review. So let's say they accept the offer. The next stage is to click accept, and this will turn into a deal. So if I go back to the contact dashboard, you see this is the final stage of the transaction. So I'll click into the deal. Now all of the information that was collected during that transaction, the documents, the property information, the contact information, the price, the commission, this is all included in the deal, and this is the only place that you're going to need to add it. So you have the price, the important dates, the buyer information, the seller information, possibly your lender. And all you need to do from here is click Sync SkySlope, and the transaction is synced. So I'm going to head over to my SkySlope, and you can see the deal that we just put together was sent to SkySlope. If I click on this, then go to the transaction tab, it's all pre-populated for you, so you don't have to manually do this or have an assistant do this for you. It's a seamless integration, and once you have all of your paperwork sorted out, it's as easy as sending it to this transaction that you just created. So much like a version control system, all of the communication, the document sharing, interactions you have with third parties, everything is tracked in an activity feed down below. And whenever your client is asking for specific documents, or where they're at in the transaction, what happens next, how much the deposit is, who it's made out to, it's all transparent in this one thread of activity. So if they have this notion that realtors do a couple hours of work for a big commission check, you can refer them to this section that shows all of the individual efforts that are associated with working with that client and all the work you're doing behind the scenes to ensure that you're looking after their best interests.